Welcome, everybody, to episode 8 of the Hot Rod Blues podcast. I'm your host, Sean Brereton, with the man on my right,
Javier Augustine, Bomber Steel Custom.
Oh, we're going to your left
Sure,
now.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We'll go back and forth. Why not?
This is Sean Young, Kingfisher Metal Works.
There you go.
I'm Mike Abbott, Steel Rose Metal Co., and our guest, Mr. Marshall Robilio, Mr. Eddie Wilbanks. How are you guys today?
Feeling good.
I feel fine.
I feel good.
Yeah.
You're still here. That's good, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So for everybody at home that doesn't know these two crazy cats, what are they about? What are you guys about?
But I got what?
You got to put them on the spot.
Right.
Well, they need to get out the gate early. I like your style already.
Absolutely.
We grew up in Memphis when hot rodding was, Marshall really before me, but when hot rodding was in its infancy, it was just getting rolling good. Drag racing was in its infancy. We were, learning about it as we went along. There was nobody was professional. It was when racing was fun. It was real. It was the perfect time. I believe we grew up in the perfect time on this planet to exist. I don't think there's ever been a time like it, and there'll be another time like it. And
we are all very jealous of that.
Yes.
Super bummed out.
Yes, we
You
are.
think that, and then somebody who's from that era comes in, and they're like, "You guys suck."
Your era is not nearly as cool as ours. Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, both of them were part of the Rodders, Memphis or Memphis Rodders, depending on how people want to say it. And you guys started. There's been a little. I've heard people say 1948. I've heard people say 1947. Which one was it?
All right, here's a real scoop because I was there.
Absolutely.
In 1947, it was. Then times were so different than they are now. Racing was from the red light.
Right.
Every time you came to a red light, that was racing. Because it was so different because there wasn't all this traffic and everything. And if you had a convertible, that was a hot rod.
That's right.
I mean, it's different than everything else.
Yeah.
And very few people had convertibles. Well, then some of them was starting to customize cars a little. But this was in 47. The popular one then was a 40 Ford.
Yeah.
And they would take the running boards off and they would smooth the nose and the deck and everything, and they were custom. But really, the racing was stoplight to stoplight.
Right.
Well, in 47, a bunch of guys got together. There were actually 7 at the inaugural meeting, and they formed the Memphis Rodders Club. And then a few more joined before the end of the year. And at the start of 1948 was really when the Rodders really started.
Right. The official.
There's 2 left of the original year, Bruce Hale and myself.
Absolutely.
And then it grew from there. And now the Rodders have accomplished a lot over the years. Building something then was entirely different than it is now. Nobody had any money.
Right.
And
I feel like that's still
I was
happening.
going to say,
everybody helped everybody. And I don't mean, I'll say you something cheap. You built a car, you scrounged it. Now, we didn't come up with the original idea of doing all of this. We would read about it, but there wasn't any big magazines or anything. Popular Mechanics and Mechanics Illustrated with it were really where you got most of your stuff.
Did you guys have the little pages here?
Do what now?
The little pages? Did you have those here?
You mean the little hot rod books?
Yeah.
Oh, no, there wasn't no hot rod books.
Not until about the 50s or so.
They were too busy writing the
Hot Rod magazine didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And we would race and we would race. And back in, I guess it was either late 49, it might have been 50, but there was an abandoned Air Force base at Halls, Tennessee. It was the old Dyersburg bomber base. And we would all get together on a Sunday morning, and we'd ride up there with whatever we had. And it started, everybody was in a streetcar.
What did you have?
And then we'd take them apart. We'd take all the extra weight out. We'd take the tires off and the back deck lid off, and we'd loosen up the wheel bearings, and we'd take the water pump off. And then we would run, and we ran on a taxi strip, and the taxi strip was about a mile long.
Right.
Well, we laid out a rough quarter mile.
Right.
And then, but you would go through the quarter mile, But then you didn't let off.
You stay wide
You
open,
Stay wide open.
Yeah, you got a
and
whole
then
mile.
you would make 2 turns and come back down the return road,
Wide
which was
open?
about wide open.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then people started building cars to run up there, and it got a little more competitive. There wasn't any admission. There wasn't any insurance. We didn't ask anybody any permission. Or
Safety,
anything.
Just did
schmafety.
it.
That's right.
Just did it.
And then in 1955, NHRA was trying to establish classes and things. It was like now. They had a lot of classes, so just about everybody come up. If you could finagly get in a class, you're going to go home and win something.
right.
Yeah. And they did establish that. We had, before NHRA, we were holding organized drag racing. We were buying insurance from Lloyd's of London.
Okay.
And it wasn't very much.
Right.
And we wasn't charging admission or anything like that. Just the people would come around.
Right.
And we would have the races. But the real kickoff to the drag racing in this area was when that safety safari came to Halls. And NHRA and the Memphis Rodders, they sponsored that.
Right.
And they had sent the crew. We always wanted a place closer to Memphis. And we tried to get a drag strip here in Memphis.
Right.
How long did it take you guys to get up there to Halls? Like back then, there's probably there
You just
wasn't
went
any-
straight up
Highway
Highway
51.
51.
Yeah.
No,
45 minutes.
So it was
an
still
hour,
was it 4
an
lane
hour,
back then?
An hour, yeah. There wasn't any interstate or nothing like that. You had to go through all these little towns, and nobody had trailers. If you had a
You
race
dro- you
car,
drove-
it pulled
you
it
drove.
all to ground.
Right.
That's right.
We had built that first dragster, and I think it might have been the first dragster to ever run east of the Mississippi. Now I don't know about Garlitz; he was down in Florida,
Right.
and it was the same time frame. And I look at some of the pictures of his, and then I look at the pictures of ours,
Right.
and very similar.
Yeah.
Very, very
Shared
similar.
inspiration.
Flathead Ford. Now, I had gone to California a couple of times and got set up with a lot of the manufacturers for Speed Shop here.
Right.
But the Speed Shop, I'm from an immigrant family and everybody worked and all. The Speed Shop was all the decals on the side of the Coke machine when you come in the front door. It was a letterhead Speed Shop.
And this was
And I didn't do it to make any money or
And this
anything
was at
like
your
that.
family's grocery store, right?
That's right. And my daddy would eat my ass out. God doggone Saturday, somebody coming in want to buy some.
Carport.
That's right. I sold go-karts. Go-kart manufacturing company. I was doing all that. And, but anyway, so...
Had a circle track behind his grocery store.
but I would get that speed equipment for buddies of mine.
Right.
Yeah. And but anyway, we kept trying to get a drag strip here in Memphis. And finally, Ray Godman got with 2 people that were with Lakeland Development Corporation. And they put in a drag strip at probably the worst place in the world. It was all hills and all out there, but it was able to get a short quarter-mile strip, and it was so short, they had the slowdown area was going uphill and a big turnaround at the end.
Right.
And anyway, as it turned out later on, because of that, the strip was actually 13 feet higher at the finish line than it was at the
It was
start.
all
the
uphill.
grade
But
was.
nobody knew that. Nobody knew that.
Nobody surveyed
Now,
any of
we
that.
were having organized drag races every Saturday night, and the hot dogs from all around would come in and think they're going to cherry pick because they see our times a little bit slow. We're not. They're all hitting right on the national record.
On flat ground.
We ain't running
No flat ground.
Flat ground.
Flat ground.
And the thing about it, we didn't even know it.
Y'all just thought you were slow.
So,
That's exactly right. That's
turnabout's fair play. When
we
you
didn't even think it. And anyway, and they would come in and we'd beat them.
Right.
yeah.
Now, back in the 60s, we ran every Saturday night. Now, all the Rodders ran against each other. Of course, there was a lot of other guys out there, but the Rodders were buddies. I mean, you'd do anything in the world to help.
Right.
You know, if you're out in nothing and the guy needs a mag or a wrench or something, or you'd blow up out there and they'd help you pull a transmission and put it back in.
Right. In the parking lot.
Yeah, right in the pit
In the
area.
pits,
and
yeah.
that's what it was.
That's right.
So were you faster when you went to their tracks? How
We were
often-
competitive. Anyway, I forget what year it was. I think it was 65 or 66. I think 6 of our cars won their class at the Indy Nationals,
Wow, that's
NHRA
cool.
Nationals, and that was really unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won classes, we won eliminators, and Larry Nolan won best engineered car. I mean,
Really?
And we all had those white coveralls.
Yeah.
And you get
Yeah.
30 people with white coveralls in a crowd of 10,000. Look like everybody's got on white coveralls.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And we were a dominant force. I mean, period. That's just all there was to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they knew
That
when
first
Memphis got brought over.
that first dragster with the flathead in it. Is that the one that looks like it's just like a set
chassis.
of what T model
All right,
frame
what
rails?
it was, Billy Ferguson and I built that. And we had gone to California and bought some of the stuff and brought it back.
Right.
And what it was T model rails.
I thought so.
All right. Now, we wanted to make the wheelbase a little bit longer. So the way the T model was suspended, the spring was behind the rear axle.
That's right.
Well, we turned the rear axle.
Oop, there you go.
You're all right.
You're good.
Did I lose it?
Yeah, you're good.
You're good.
Oh, his mic turned off.
It's my turn.
Oh,
We
yep.
turned the rear
Switch the
over.
mic. Hang on. There you go.
There we go.
All right.
We're
How
good
about
now.
that?
There we go.
All right. We turned the rear end over, and that increased the wheelbase.
Right.
But it was strange. Then when you would pump get on the gas, it wouldn't squat down in the back, it'd lift up. Oldsmobile 1 year, I think in the late 40s, they had developed that overhead valve engine that Kettering designed. And the way it was suspended, it would do that. You could tell the car.
Mopars were kind of known for jumping up
Yeah,
in the
rear too, yeah.
in the back there.
They ran snubbers on those cars, yeah. They ran a snubber on the front of the differential that hit the body and jacked the body up when they rear. That's what Herb Sanders, when he was racing, Herb McCandless.
Herb McCandless.
When Herb McCandless was racing, that was the factory setup, and everybody was running it, and that was the trick deal for the time. They didn't have traction bar, or 4 links or anything like that. Just had a snubber.
Yeah.
And
That
was
ran
it.
Something
ran
to
up
tame
at
the rear
bottom
end,
of
yeah.
the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we first started, a quarter mile was just about standard. That's what people were talking about.
Right.
Everything had come from California. Memphis had the naval training station
Yep,
here.
NAS Memphis. Yeah.
And there were a lot of hot rodders from California that were at Millington. The Rodders met every Sunday night. And a lot of them influenced. They came in with us, and we were really good buddies and everything. And one night, a buddy that we had taken in with us said, they're running something marvelous in California. They had been boiling down. Could you boil down dynamite? That was a story. But I don't know. But anyway, it was this solvent that they had developed as a cleaning solution for high-back stuff. But they were running it in race cars, and it was phenomenal. And they said, they told us how to do it. If you run alcohol instead of gasoline, you got to run twice the volume.
Right.
If you run 20% nitro in alcohol, you got to do twice the volume again.
Wow.
And so anyway, the races usually at halls. At first, we didn't have lights or anything like that. It was all a flagman, and it was a rolling start.
Really?
And there was a lot of jacking around doing that. You go fast like the boat do. You speed up and then slow down. And if you get pretty good at it, it's a big advantage. But I
Rolling
just about
starts.
forgot what I'm talking about.
So yeah. So was there,
Boiling dynamite. Boiling dynamite.
Yeah.
All right, well, he comes in and he says, man, they're running this wonderful stuff. And nitromethane is what it is.
Wow. Yeah.
And he gets from his buddies, which you got to do. Well, a buddy of mine was a machinist, and I didn't know anything about carburetors. And George Reed was famous welder. He was in on this. And he made all the special tubes. You had to take the dump tubes out and drill them out, and then you had to enlarge the needle inside. You had to drill out the jets and everything. Well, the racing then, they would race the fastest motorcycle against the fastest car.
Really?
That was the top of the day. Well, the motorcycle always won.
Yeah, right.
And I'll tell you who it was. Jerry Branch, who was later with Flowmetrics.
Yeah.
He ran Harley racing for years and years.
Yeah.
But anyway, they would run the fastest car in the motorcycle. And the motorcycle would always win. Well, we happened to be the fastest car that day, but we were running
Nitromethane.
No, we were running alcohol.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have but a kilo of it. They told us.
I feel like I've heard this story.
They told us how to tune it. He said, man, you fire it up, and then you look in and you read the top of the piston, or if you can't, you can read the plug. And if it's rich, you pour in more nitro. If it's lean, you pour in more alcohol. But anyway, we made a burnout run. I don't know if we knew what we were doing or not, but anyway. But we had the 4 carburetors we had already set up for alcohol, and then set for the nitro. We were using Stromberg 48s, I guess, and 97s on the other.
That's what I'm talking
And
about.
anyway, we put those on, and we beat the motorcycle, and nobody could believe it. Wow. I don't know. We didn't have any ET clocks in, and the clocks were homemade, and sometimes they were. I think we were turning about 110, 112 on alcohol, and I think we turned about 132 on at 20%.
On a flat
With a
flathead, yeah.
The flathead, and it had a Harman Collins mag, and it.
Yeah.
I don't forget what brand of heads and manifold we did, but we had a Winfield cam.
Yeah.
And that
Was it
hot.
aluminum headed or was it cast iron heads?
Did you? Yeah.
No, all the racing heads were aluminum. Yeah.
Okay.
That was the early days. All the little foundries and everything in California, they were so easy to make. They were making heads and manifolds.
Right.
And there was a bunch of them manufacturing them.
Right.
Of course, Edelbrock was one of the most famous,
Ishii,
but there's
all of them.
Wine and
How
Sharp and Navarro.
How quickly were you going through rings? I mean, those are high temperatures. Were you burning rings when you went
We
to
didn't even know
motor.
anything about that.
When it stopped working, you just got another one.
Time for another one.
Put it in the pile.
we didn't know anything about that.
That's probably the most awesome thing.
I'll
about
tell you one thing though. Those Ford motors were tough.
Absolutely.
They were
they
tough. They were tough.
Yeah.
Especially Arden, the Arden overhead conversion.
Yeah.
Oh man, they were
That's big
expensive
stuff,
then.
yeah.
I think a set of I don't know. It was run $600 or $700 for a set of those heads.
$6,000 or $7,000
Nobody
now.
had
I bet it's more than that. But
Yeah. They're still expensive.
Duntop designed them, and he was the father of the Corvette.
Right.
The Duntop
Really?
cams and the Corvettes and
Really?
everything. They were Arden. I don't know if they made in They might have been made in Great Britain. I don't remember.
The father of the Corvette is who designed the
Zora
Arden head.
Arcus
Arden overhead, yeah.
Zora Arcus Duntop.
That's
Yeah,
I
exactly
know that.
right.
Arden.
Yeah.
He was a real
sounds-
accomplished race car driver too, though. I mean, in addition to that, he drove in I guess probably Le Mans and things like
Really?
that. Oh yeah.
He's
Okay.
big European.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Duntop.
I'm a fan of that style of racing. I
Yeah.
like Le Mans and all that other stuff. I've never
Oh,
been
I
a big
love
drag
it.
racer guy.
You always make fun of me for racing my Miata.
I know. But that's really the only style of racing I really
Well,
like.
if it had a flathead in it,
If
we
it
probably
had a
wouldn't.
flathead,
Hey,
That might be a
wasn't
shop
formed.
night project.
we could probably find a
Put
class for that. That's right. Shop night.
Flathead Miata?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a country
There's nobody
song.
else. There's nobody else running a flathead Miata.
I'm gonna tell you about
There's
those
a-
flatheads now. When they Chrysler designed that 331 Hemi, and the guys that were hopping them up. Now I don't know why. I'm just telling you what people did.
right?
They would convert them to full floating bearings, and they were using flathead type
Really?
stuff.
Because flatheads are brilliant.
Yeah.
They were a good motor. I still flathead it. I'm a big fan of flatheads.
The beauty of the flathead is that Siamese center cylinders.
Yeah.
That's why it's got that distinctive sound.
Yeah.
Instead of 4,
Right.
there's 3 on each side.
Yeah.
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 And of course, when they originally made that, they made that in 2 versions. I think the 331 was 85 horsepower, and I don't know what the V860 was. I don't know in displacement.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they had the coolest sound. I remember Budgie Haley, which was an early member of the Rodders. He wasn't the first year, but he's still alive. He had a V860 in the sedan. That wouldn't pull the hat off your head, but it sure sounded so damn good.
The most famous thing Mike has ever told me and stuck with me is flatheads. And the tagline is the most money you'll ever spend to go slow. That's true. but you guys might be changing my mind about that. All I got to do is run nitro methane or boil down dynamite.
Right.
Right.
Boil down Dynamite.
But you did hear him say we were doing 140 miles an hour.
He said 110, but I said for
32. Yeah.
we'll stretch it for the story.
Either way, the guy's feet are hanging out the bottom of the chassis. So like
that's epic.
at 100
That is
miles an hour, I don't
You
want
didn't
my
need
feet hanging
seatbelts.
that
You were
close.
done if you wiped out, I guess.
We die like real men.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Absolutely. Well, tell me about casting what was it? Was it a transmission bell housing or a conversion for a transmission in a parking lot? Someone told me that you guys casted a bell housing in a parking lot. Who told me that?
I don't know.
That's not true?
No.
That's a
I don't
lie?
remember.
I don't know. I don't know.
It may be true.
He said, I don't remember doing it.
I don't know. It might have been.
It was a
When-
blown-up bell housing on the back of your flathead, and you went back and got all the pieces probably and put it back together.
That's it.
Oh, he did.
We were at Halls and blew. Then you had those heavy clutches, and the discs were called Velvet Touch. Boy, and they were wonderful because you couldn't burn one of them up.
Right.
But the bad thing is, if you wound them up, they'd blow up. And when it did, the flathead, the bell housing is part of the block.
That's right.
Well, we blew. And boy, that was exciting.
What car was that in?
It was in that old dragster.
It was in the rail dragster?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then that was before the days of bell housing shields or anything like that.
You're right.
And man, we were really despondent because we had put a ton of time in that block pouring it and everything. And we did it ourselves.
Right.
Now, we probably didn't do it very good, but we did it.
You did it nonetheless.
But anyway, we went back up the next Monday. That was on the Sunday. And gathered all the pieces that we could find. And we came back home.
Eddie, you're killing me, man. Eddie's just rolling over there, man. He just
And anyway, we get all these pieces and we fit them back together.
Like a puzzle.
And we beat everything out, everything. And we built some kind of charcoal fire and heated that whole block and everything. And then we had it all beat it. Now, there were a bunch of pieces that were missing, but we just hacked them out of other stuff and put them in.
Just packed them in.
And we
heated
took
them
turns.
up.
It took a long time. We brazed all that thing back together.
That's it. That's the
And
story.
it held for a while.
What's a while?
Yeah.
What's a while?
We took that engine out and put it in Art Black had a Bantam coupe, and they were opening Carlisle drag strip, and they wanted something really dramatic over there. Well, that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we went over, and at the third run, we looked down there, and the thing is all cracking up, so we had to bow out. We couldn't run it.
It's a safety issue on the track.
Yeah.
I wish y'all had kept that. Just if you
Yeah.
lacquered it back together, just hung it on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Bondo.
wish-
Well, a
You
similar
could Bondo
thing.
it up.
A similar thing happened to Ray Godman. Now, he was a paraplegic, and boy, he had to have the best and the biggest everything. Well, you could bore a flathead block, I think, to about 3/8.
Right.
Well, they said the Canadian forward blocks were a little bit tougher, and he got one, and he bored at 7/16. Now, we did, and I'm in with him. That's the one thing about the Rodders. If I say I did it, I don't mean I did it. I mean we did it.
Right.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
everything.
We're a crew.
And it don't make any difference.
Right.
We did it. Well, anyway, so he boards at 7/16. Well, we tried the first time, and of course it blows the cylinder out. Well, a good friend of ours had Osborne after the machine shop. We went over and we bored that thing out, and they put a big sleeve in it.
Yeah.
And then it held pretty good. But Raymond always suspected that it wouldn't be good. Well, we were going up. It was the second World Series of drag racing put on by AHRA. They had that trademark name, and NHRA wanted to be the big shot.
Right.
And later on, they bought AHRA just so they could get that title.
The World Series.
But anyway, and we go up to that. I think this was the second year they had it. It might have been number 2. It was around 58 or 59 or 60.
This would have been in Chicago,
It was south of
outside.
Chicago.
right? Where it was run
It's in
forever.
the area. I can't remember the name. It was in the area where there were a lot of oil wells. Well, we get up there the first run. Red Dyer's a drive. He blows the engine. Of course, he blows one of them cylinders. Well, we went over. This real nice guy had a shop in his backyard, and we had all the stuff. Well, I say we. Raymond had all the stuff, and we went out there. Can you help us fix this? He said, well, no. If you knew what to do, y'all go ahead and fix it. So Raymond had worked for Mills Morris after he got injured in the machine shop, and well, we put the sleeve in. And
In some guy's backyard shop.
A stranger's backyard shop.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, there's more to that story anyway. Well, anyway, we get out there, and I don't know, he had some other kind of trouble, and he couldn't run. But we ran. I was running a fuel altered, and we were running a flathead. And on the same, I made one run the morning of the eliminations. I forget if it was Saturday or Sunday, and blew a spark plug out. Out of aluminum head.
Yeah.
We're running fuel. And anyway, we yanked the head off, and my buddies get the car ready, and they got it in line so when we get back, we can run. Anyway, we run over to the farmer. The guy with the machine shop, and his wife said, he gone to church. And she said, you know what to do? I said, yeah. She said, well, just go out there and fix it.
That's
So
awesome.
we went out there, and we got a big old plumbing pipe plug, and we put a pipe thread in the head and put that plug in it and bore down, put a 14-millimeter plug in it.
Yes.
And we're back, and we're in line, and we're putting the head on, and we jump in, and we had a rivalry then. It was a Olds coupe, and I think some engine builder had built the engine from Chicago. It might have been Granatelli.
Yeah. So tell me about you were in line. So were the guys pushing the car up the line with one head on it?
They hadn't called our class yet. So
Okay.
we get back out. Oh, that's good.
Right.
Well, anyway, then, of course, we used to always kind of play tricks. These guys from Chicago, they were kind of, they looked down upon anybody from the
butthead.
South.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a couple of incidences with them about mouthing back and forth.
I love it.
Well, anyway, they go down and turn around and fire coming back. I said, well, I ain't gonna be in no hurry. They're gonna get kind of hot. So,
Right.
well, anyway, we jack around and jack around and jack around, come back, and man, they're hollering, screaming, and everything. Well, man, I yanked their ass so far. Oh, it was unreal.
You done made them overheat their car.
Man, they got mad. Of course, we won.
We just turned on their turf.
But then they wanted to run again. And Raymond's driver was pretty brash. Of course, he didn't have a nickel to his name. If he had a penny in his pocket, he wouldn't go to work.
Right.
Anyway, he'd been mouthing back, and they wanted to run again.
Yeah.
And Red said, well, for how much y'all want to run? You want to run for a couple $100?
That's big
And
money.
no,
That's big
they
money.
didn't know. They didn't want to do that. And that was but the next morning, Raymond wanted to drive his car. Now, he's a paraplegic.
Right.
He wanted to drive his car. So the airstrip's abandoned. So he could use his feet.
Right.
But anyway, so Red and I are in the truck, and Raymond gets in the car, and we push him off. And boy, he goes really screaming off. Then all of a sudden, man, we see that
Pistons spitting out everywhere.
and we're scared to death. And we get down there to Raymond, and he slumped over the wheel. And of course, he's a paraplegic now. He sure ain't got any business driving.
Right.
And he looked down, and he sees all these springs in the belly pad, and he thought they were valve springs. Scared us to death. And he thought he had blown his legs off.
Blown him off. And he wouldn't. But how would he know?
It didn't hurt. Well, we were going from the World Series, and then I think it was to Oklahoma City was the next weekend. Well, instead of coming back, we just went. We had made some friends with some guys in St. Louis. We were going to St. Louis and then to Kansas City. Well, we get to St. Louis, and we had to do Raymond's block that same way. He had blown the bell housing off of it. And so, but this was a clean cut.
Yeah.
And we got a clean cut off of an old block.
Right.
And it lasted until he blew another cylinder.
Right.
We didn't have enough sense to know that the cylinders were the strength of the block.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, later on, they started, instead of putting water in the block, they put a plaster of
Yeah.
some of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So, Eddie, how about building a dragster chassis in your carport? Somebody told me you built a dragster chassis in your carport.
I think
Well-
Eddie builds everything,
In the
period, everywhere.
I like your style.
Well, it wasn't a carport. It was just a little garage on the side of the house. But
Lean to.
yeah, back in those days, I couldn't afford to buy the California stuff, so I started making it myself.
Right.
And so before that, we had run a little dragster with a Ford engine in it. It was a Logan chassis with a 302 Ford with Gurney Westlake heads. So anyway, we quit racing that car, and I wanted to build a top fueler. So Johnny Albright, who had a shop right over here on Summer, was a chassis builder. And so I started building this car, and so to make sure it was done properly, Johnny would drive out of his way every afternoon and come by and check out my work and tell me to go ahead. And so basically I built a 196-inch car with an Oldsmobile rear end in it, put a late model Hemi in it. The late model Hemis had just come on the scene. This was about 1971, I guess. And Raymond and Preston had a little lover's tiff. And so Preston comes over and says, I want to help you finish that car so we can go race. So we put the car together. We built it down at Torque Conversion Incorporated down on Ioka off of Crump. And when we got through with it, we loaded on an open trailer, drove to Gainesville, and we got there just in time to tech and get in. And Preston fired the car up, and he drove all the way around through the pits till he could find Raymond, and drove by and whacked it a couple of times just so Raymond would know.
know he was there.
And anyway, so that was when a guy like myself and Preston could be competitive, working out of our backyard.
Right.
And we actually, that same year, we ran Garlett's in a match race down at Phoenix City, and Preston beat him 2 out of 3 times.
Wow.
And the car weighed 1,230 pounds, ready to race. That was with cast iron block, cast iron heads. And that was about the end of the privateer era, I guess. Right after that, Garlett's perfected the rear engine car, and the rest is big money in history.
Right.
But it wasn't in the carport. It was actually in a garage. I had walls around me, so
Yeah.
But yep.
So I got a question. Back in the day, you always see the old footage and stuff. They're burning the tires all the way down the track, right? Mm-hmm. So did they think it was faster then to do that, or why did they do that?
They didn't know any better. I mean, literally.
Years, right.
And right in about 1971, probably 70, 71 is when they started working on the slipper clutches. And they were literally killing people. I mean, that's if the clutch came apart in the front engine car, it would cut the chassis in half. I mean, it
blow
was
it apart.
Yeah. And so we had a slipper clutch, one of the very early ones, and it was a real tedious situation. But over time, they had a deal where they were blowing up so frequently. Instead of trying to solve the problem of it blowing up, they tried to build
Cage
a
work
car
around
where
it.
it would contain it. And so inside the bell housing, they had a steel ring that just floated. And so if the clutch came apart,
Catch it.
in theory, that the spring would just spin inside there and absorb the impact, and it wouldn't cut the bell housing, cut the car in half.
Right.
What actually happened, though?
Yeah, well, that worked. But like I said, over time, they got the clutches to where they stayed together, and the rest is history, as they say. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what led you to being a machinist? How'd that happen?
Well, when I got out of high school, like I said, I wanted to drag race. Larry Nolan and I were good friends. We had been riding motor scooters together before that. And so we couldn't afford, like I said, to buy the stuff from California. A lot of stuff wasn't available. So I just started making things for our own projects. And so I would go over to Marshall's house, and Marshall let me use his drill press, his stick welder, his lathe. And so I learned the basics from this guy right here.
Right.
And so as time evolved, I actually had a real job for a while back in those days. And so
How old are you guys around this time?
when I built that Top Fuel car, I would have been 30 years old.
Okay.
And so,
Everyone at this table is failures.
Yeah, right.
right. So anyways, as time evolved, people started bringing me their parts to work on. All the other Rodder guys, Bill Fight and Hoot and Larry Nolan. I mean, we all just kind of, like I said, worked together, but I was became kind of the machinist guy, and I started welding. And eventually I decided to quit work and just do it for myself full time, and I made a lousy living the rest of my life.
I can relate.
Right? Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing, how dedicated they were. When they were in high school, you know how when you're in high school, you got that big book up in there, and you got a Playboy magazine in there.
You're right.
They used Hot Rod magazine.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, that is true. You hear all those stories, but Larry and I, and I guess a lot of other guys literally had the little small hot rod magazines, and or they weren't hot rod, they were just car magazines, and we'd look at them in study hall.
Yeah.
And it was just our passion, and you know, it's I guess nowadays, I don't know if young people have the same kind of passion. We literally, all of us, neglected our jobs, our families, everything else.
Right.
I mean, racing was what it was all about.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was just good or bad. That's the way it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your day job that you quit?
I was a salesman with in a division of Holiday Inns.
Okay.
And then I had several other jobs along, but they were all just sales or things like that. I never worked in a machine shop. I did get offered a job in a machine shop, a good machine, and I was supposed to start down there. I was supposed to be there at 7 o'clock on Monday morning. And so I'm not a morning person at all. Well, I got up at 6 o'clock on Monday morning, called Mr. Good and told him I didn't want the job. I wouldn't be there at 7.
Hey, giving my 1 hour notice.
Nice.
So, you know.
So what did you do for Supercycle?
I never really did anything with Super. They were just friends of ours. I never did any work down there. I never worked with. There was a guy named Schulte Sullivan that was real good friends with Ron and Lou Elliott.
Yeah.
And Schulte built choppers. And so Schulte and I, and at the time I had a paint shop. I did custom paint work for a number of years. I painted Raymond's Top Fueler. I painted the Super Duster, the Kingfish Funny car. I painted a bunch of race cars and street cars. And so it's just like I say, it's just an evolution of whatever happened. You know, we just kind of evolved and did what we did. There was no plan. I painted Herb McCandless's that 68 Dart. I painted that car in 1968.
Okay.
So
And
somebody
so-
told me that House of Colors may have ripped your idea off.
Who?
House of Colors may have ripped your idea off.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I don't know, but Supercycle though. What I was going to say though, Schulte and I kind of got connected, and I had this paint booth that I'd built over there on Neal Street off of Poplar up there. And so we were the Bondo Kings. I mean, those choppers were all Bondo. I mean, we'd just slop on the Bondo, sand it down to whatever shape you
Carve
like.
it, whatever you like.
Yeah, whatever shape you like.
You were
and put the
sculptors,
paint on it.
really.
And so, we were supposed to be competitors, but we were best friends, and we worked together and had a great time. And it was just, like I said, things were just exciting. I don't know what else to say.
Absolutely.
We did custom paint work for Dobbs Ford. Dobbs Ford sponsored our Dragster, and Jimmy was always kind of our patron. And he bought a bunch of Ford Fairlanes like yours, Shane, and Sean. And it was they wouldn't sell, so he brought them over to the shop, and we'd put these discrete flame jobs on them and other little touches, and put custom wheels on them. Had a little sticker that said Dobbs Coyote. and they'd sell like hotcakes.
Rebranded them.
I was gonna say that it was kind of like the early days of like Yanko and stuff like that. You know, I mean, they just
I guess so. Yeah.
kind of the same type of things.
So about House of Colors.
I'm waiting.
Oh, okay.
He's contractually
okay, I know where you're going now.
He's,
Okay,
he's
so
baiting you here. Yeah.
well, back in the day, there was no internet, but the internet, the closest thing to it was the Thomas Register, and it was a series of books or catalogs. It was a set of books about probably 3 feet or 4 feet long, and the books were about 3 inches thick. And so you paid to get in them. And so if you had a business, you advertised, you put your name in there. So if I wanted to find paint, I would just go to the paint area, and there'd be 15 or 20 pages of people that made paint. So I worked at Innkeeper Supply, part of Holiday Inns, and I had access to the Thomas Register. Well, I had heard about pearl pigmented paint. So I started to look up pearl pigments. I found a place in New York called the Merle Pearl Corporation, and they use pearl pigments for cosmetics. So working at Innkeeper Supply, I had access to a watch line, which was a toll-free long-distance line. It cost $1,500 a month, and you could call anytime. So I'd stay after work or go in early and use that. So I called this place in New York. The guy would send me these little jars full of pearl pigments, and he would tell me to mix them with the paint and try them. So I would mix them with the paint and try them, send him back the results. And over the years, that became what became the I guess it was the House of Color. Was that the first one?
Yeah.
And I've got letters where I communicated back and forth with these people developing these pearl pigments. They had the Murano pearls. They used them in cosmetics, but they would change colors based on whether the light was reflected or refracted off of them. They would be blue or gold or red or green. I mean, it was really pretty cool. And so I don't know if that was if anybody stole it, anyway, I was involved. I feel like in the early development of the pearl paint work and paints.
Absolutely.
Well, sir, I've just passed the bar, and it sounds like you have a case on your hands. I'd love to represent you.
I think the statute of limitations have probably.
Well,
We've got proof.
I still have some of those little jars of those pearl pigments. I still have some of it.
Tangible proof. Exhibit A. Exhibit A.
And that was from Merle Pearl
Corporation.
That does not sound like a real corporation.
I love it. I think it's great.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Rip has got the letters actually that in a folder, where we communicated about it.
We're gonna have to get him to show us those. I need to see them.
That's pretty funny.
And I tell people, I realized this here recently, you don't paint a car, you sand a car. The painting is just kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah,
That's right.
No, it's all prep.
You're right. Yeah, it's all about prep.
It's all about sanding.
It could be a highlighter.
Yeah,
you messed up here.
exactly.
You messed up there.
Right. Yeah. People don't give body guys nearly enough credit, man. They
No.
put a lot of time, man. They put a lot of time.
So what about more contemporary stuff moving forward? Like, I know that's all we're talking about, the early days. You and I spoke about a Cobra build where you were talking about a 5.4 liter modular Ford.
Yeah.
You had swapped out and decided to go a different direction.
Yeah, I have a problem with overthinking things, and so especially my own projects. So I bought this Cobra kit car from a guy that he had bought and never did anything with, and so I was going to put a 5.4 supercharged 4-valve modular Ford motor in it with an automatic transmission with the paddle shifters and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And the concept drug on for a long time, and finally I decided if I was ever going to drive it, I needed to simplify it. Well, I decided to go with a 351 Windsor and make it more traditional and with a stick shift transmission and whatever. So, yeah, and I'm still mired down in the project, but I'm making progress. But I abandoned the high-tech stuff, and I wanted it to be more classic, so I don't know. But I enjoy what I think I enjoy is the thought process and the working out all the details, and then as far as following through, that's where I get weak.
I have the same problem. The whole thing is that, and it's a new adage maybe, is wouldn't it be cool if we, and then at the end of it, you don't do.
Exactly. Yeah, it would have been cooler if we had actually done it.
I've built some really cool hot rods.
Yeah, exactly.
They've never really been built.
Yeah.
I got some pills that'll help you guys.
right. Yeah. That's something that I've decided that I'm in love with building, the process of building.
Exactly.
I once cars do get done, if I ever finish a car, I'm done with it. Like I'll drive it for a couple of months. I'll get rid of it. I don't. Even
understand
care about
exactly
it.
what you're saying.
I want to build something else. What's the next thing I'm building? So it's definitely a building.
We got involved in building, I guess you'd call it special motorcycles over the years. Some friends of mine and I developed a pneumatic suspension for motorcycles back in the early 70s.
Wow.
And so we built these motorcycles. We flat track raced on the dirt track races for about 12 years in the AMA series, and we road raced for a few years. I built the stuff. I never rode them. And I built a lot of drag racing bikes back in the day for Leo Goff and other people that were really successful. And again, it's like you said, I'd build a motorcycle, and as soon as it was finished, other than racing, I was ready to move on to something else. That's history,
Yeah. What are we building next?
Yeah.
For sure. So, Marshall, when did you change from cars to motorcycles, or were you always a motorcycle guy?
Well, I was halfway always a motorcycle guy. I was interested in anything mechanical or had a motor in it and everything. Luckily, I never really got into boats, but I was interested in airplanes. And in fact, I had some flying lessons when I was young, but circumstances killed that.
He was also into high-end, high-fidelity.
And a crazy good photographer.
Yeah, the photographer. Yes.
Oh, I've been taking pictures all my life. In fact, now I'm living in the past. I'm getting all those old pictures, and I can just about remember every one that
we're all very
every one
grateful.
that I took. But when I was into hot rods, and I also was into sports cars at the same time.
Yeah.
In 1952, I bought a brand new Jaguar XK120, and that was the most revolution thing in the world. You just couldn't believe it.
You had to be the only person in Memphis with a Jaguar. Back
No,
then.
I was the second one.
Really?
I was the second.
your dad had the other one.
Bill Pennington was the first one, and when I saw it, I just went wild. And it's really strange. My daddy got a new Cadillac every couple of years, and my best friend got a new Cadillac every year, and my brother just got a Riviera. And they're all over there. We had the grocery store where the family was, and everybody would eat lunch together. The whole family would come in.
Car
and eat
show
lunch.
in the grocery store.
Yeah. And anyway, and then I pull up and I show them that Jaguar.
What'd your dad think of that Jaguar?
Oh, my daddy thought I was nuts. And I was. And anyway, my brother and Doc Clark, they look at that Jaguar and they think it's cute. And they said, how much did that thing cost? And I bought it from Bucky Moore's daddy. He was a Hudson dealer and he was a Jaguar. Just got Jaguar in. And anyway, I said $4,200. And they were starting to say, what? You could have bought a Cadillac. I said, I don't want a Cadillac.
That's right. What's that car in your garage right now? Is that a Jaguar?
It's a 54 XK140. Now, that car's really got an interesting story.
That's a good-looking car, too. It's
Beautiful.
Beautiful
The
car.
52 I had was just like that, except it had steel wheels and the fender skirts and the lines of it were just, actually, I think, better than the one with the wire wheels. But my good friend who had done the machine work on those carburetors and everything, he wanted that car. Now, another good friend of mine, Cordy York, who was a world-famous hunter, and his family had the sporting goods stores here. When he bought that new, I had my Jag, and I think I took him to St. Louis in my Jag, and we rode both of them back. But to make a long story short, the car was shipped to, when Carter sold it to a doctor, he shipped it to Africa. He was for his residency,
Right.
and he raced it in some club races, not anything important. And he got banged up a little. Anyway, when he brought it back, my good friend Joe Robinson bought it. And Joe had to be a perfectionist, like a machinist. You got to drill that hole in the right place. He wants everything right. Now, he don't like welding, though, because that shit warps everything. But anyway, so I helped him, and we had some friend that was a body man at Hull Dobbs. And he would come over and took all the Bondo out of it where it had been banged up. And there were some dents in it, the hood and the doors and the deck lid are aluminum, and he worked the aluminum out and everything, and then we painted it. But we were lifelong friends, and he had never been married, and when he died, he left me that car.
Oh,
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah,
So that one in your garage has raced in Africa.
yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. That is awesome.
yeah. Now, I sold it to my grandson. I got 7 grandkids, so I couldn't give it to him. But
Yeah.
I tell everybody I give it to them because they think I'm a big shot.
Right. Yeah.
Marshall's dad brought a Lancia, a Pia, or Appia, what do you want to call it, a little Lancia 4-door sedan. Had a 15-degree V4 engine in it. Had 1-cylinder head on a little V
Right.
engine.
Wow.
And when Marshall's dad was ready to get something else, I bought that car, and that's what my wife drove right after we got married, that little Lancia Apia. It was
That's
a cool
cool.
little car.
Wow.
That had to have been the only one of those in the Memphis area.
Oh, yeah. Long shot.
There were 2 Lancias. One was an attorney had a convertible.
Yeah.
This was a luxury 4-door, but it was 1,100 cc's. I think 1,100 cc.
I think that's right.
Motorcycle.
And Mom and Daddy, they went to Italy and back a lot.
Right.
And I was teasing Mama when they were going to Italy. I think, what was that, in the 60s? Or the
Yeah.
In the 60s.
Mid-60s.
And I said, bring me back one of them Alpha Giulietta Spiders. You know, I'd like one.
Right.
Of course, it was a little small race car. Well, Mama thought I was serious, and they went to the dealership. And she saw that little road. She said, I ain't buying him that thing. Well, Daddy decided he'd buy a car, and they're going to stay over 5 or 6 months, and they have something to ride around on. So they bought this Lancia. And it was 1,100 cc, and it was gorgeous.
Red leather upholstery.
And the doors opened up
Yeah.
with no post.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Suicide
And
with no
all the
post.
seal, like wind noise and stuff, all the seal, all the door jams and everything had double seals.
Wow.
Four on the column.
Yeah.
Wow.
4 on the
Wow,
column.
really?
Okay.
And it was, well, anyway, they brought it back, and I met them in New York to drive it back. Well, Mama wasn't going to ride back in that little old car, so she flew back, but Daddy and I drove it back. Now, Daddy had been driving a Cadillac.
Right.
Of course, you know, that was cute because it came from Italy, but he
American
he
shores
didn't
is a
think
different
much of
thing.
it. But coming back from New York, we're averaging 33 miles to the gallon.
Wow.
And gas is 31 cents a gallon.
Wow.
And he was bragging. He would brag on that thing, a penny a mile, penny a mile.
So let me ask you this: your parents came back. You met them up in New York. So did you drive to New York? Did you
No,
take a
no, I
train?
flew up so I
You
could
flew
drive
up there?
back with yeah.
Dig that. And is this still before the time of interstates?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were taking highways back.
Now, wait a
from New
minute,
York?
61? No, I think there was,
had-
There was
Pennsylvania Turnpike, there was some interstates.
There were
Yeah.
some, but not a lot.
Not a lot.
Because, I bought a 57 Corvette. I tried to find a Corvette here in Memphis. This is when I was about 19, I guess, right out of high school. I'd saved up my money, and I wanted a 57 Corvette. And so I couldn't find one, so Larry's uncle found one in Chicago where he lived. So Larry and I took the train to Chicago and drove the car back, and there were no interstates. And it was in the middle of August, and the sun was blazing down, and we couldn't put the top up because the zipper was broke on the rear window, and it would flap. So we were driving with, and this sounds fictitious, but Larry will verify it. So we're driving back and about somewhere up in Missouri. We're so sunburned we can't even think. We're bright red. We went in a grocery store, got 2 paper sacks, put them over our head, and tore little holes so we could see. And came on to Memphis, and we were both throwing up sick by then.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
I did that once. My dad had a 1980 Corvette, and he lived in Georgia at the time and was moving. I think they were moving back here, but I ended up driving the Corvette back, and it was T-tops, so I had the T-tops out of it, and, it's nice and cool with the breeze blowing and all that. It was probably, only like 70 degrees outside or 70 or 80, and I never even thought about being burnt. But I had my hair real short, like a crew cut then, and man, it hit me at some point. I was like, man, why does my head hurt? I was like, oh man, my head got burnt so bad. That was not good.
That is epic.
Yeah.
That is epic.
You were talking about the little magazines. Larry and I I had a 52 Ford, and Larry had I think a 53 convertible. Mine was a 2-door hardtop. Anyway, one of the magazines had an article about how to make a floor shifter. And you took a steering column and you shortened it until it was about 6 inches long. And then you mounted it, you welded a muffler clamp to it, and you mounted it sideways on the tail shaft so that the shifter, the lever came up inside and the finger stuck down on the other side of the tail shaft. And the only problem with it, about every day or so, you'd have to retighten the muffler clamp, and it shifted, you shifted over and up for low, back for second, and up for third, reverse back over. Anyway, so Larry and I, over in a friend of ours' driveway, we made 2 of those shifters, those 6-inch column shifters, and mounted them on the tail shafts of our car, and we were hot, boy. I'm telling you.
So it was
did they
it was
not-
3-speed?
Yeah.
Huh?
It was 3-speed, like 3-speed column shift, so
Yeah,
it shifted
mhm.
just like a column shift. Only
Yeah.
that would have messed me up.
Yeah, low was over here. But man, second, you just grab this and pull. It'd go right into second. It was great.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
if it didn't fall off first.
I wonder if we can find a picture.
Did
of
they
that.
not? Was there any aftermarket stuff at that time where you could buy a shifter? Was that just
There
a
were
poor
probably
man's
some
thing, or-
coming along, but they weren't accessible, I guess,
Wow.
right?
Right.
See, I guess I just never think about that other than, I mean, obviously 55 was shift on the column and all that. But yeah, I never even thought about
There's
like
a point in
when
time
the
when
shifter
none of it
started.
existed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That would have been about 1961 probably.
Wow. Okay. That's cool. That's neat. That's ingenuity though, That's one of those things where you got a problem and you got to solve
Well,
it.
somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
You should be the guy.
If you don't have any money, you just do what you can do.
Yeah.
exactly
Amen. That's my MO.
Cut wheels up.
Right. Yeah. That's right. That's right.
doubt.
That's how I got into all of this. Is I always thought cars were super cool and motorcycles were cool, but I could never afford to buy any of it. So I guess I'm gonna have to learn how to make it.
Yeah.
And that's
And it's a
how I
lot
got
more
into it.
rewarding. I mean, you can,
Yeah.
you can buy something or pay somebody else to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you do it yourself, it's just a whole different feel.
Absolutely.
I love the buddy stories though, and having 2 friends that grew up doing this and into their adulthood. Mike and I were working on the 32 yesterday, reworking the steering box on it, and it's like I'm looking at you guys. We'd be lucky if we hit that like that. But we had this.
I'll be dead.
Yeah. There's a lot of people lucky to hit.
I got a solid 10 years left in me. That's about it.
Yeah.
We got to get it all in the next 10 years because he's checking out. But to that point, we just reworking a problem that didn't exist until we decided to put that where we wanted it to go.
Yeah.
And we were talking
And two
about
people, a friend of mine told me he said 2 heads work a lot better than one. If you're willing to work with someone,
Right.
You have your ideas, but then somebody else makes a suggestion, and it just changes everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a really positive thing. Working with your friends like that,
Yeah.
and it
it's
makes it
kinda
more
hard,
fun
yeah.
too. I mean,
You had a similar deal 2 weeks ago with the shop night. You had to hit a wall. They hit a wall on the on the streamliner, the belly tanker.
I had to come in and get them squared away.
No, they,
Thank you. Good for you.
they hit it. I wasn't here. I was at work, but they hit a wall, and they went to dinner and came back, and everything just unfolded because they were able to bounce ideas off each other.
You do like Eddie does. Every time he hits one of those walls, he puts it upstairs over at his shop.
I do that sometimes too.
Have you ever seen the upstairs over
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
The land of forgotten
Yes,
toys.
I have.
It's
Yeah.
a special place.
It is.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I guess we need to talk about Eddie and like how he's a mad scientist. That his place looks like
It looks like
hoarder-ish a little bit,
The
right?
thing
But
about
you know where everything is.
Well, the thing is, you got stuff, and I know Mike and all of y'all have things, and you may not have any use for them, but it's a useful item for somebody.
That's
I
right.
just cannot see myself throwing it in the dump,
Yeah.
because I don't need it today. Somebody's going to need it sometime. But my wife doesn't agree with me, but that's just the way.
I was gonna say I need you to talk to my wife because my stuff just disappears and I don't know where it went. It was in the trash.
Funny story. Y'all know Leo Goff.
Yeah.
Well, he has a lot of stuff too. Well, he goes to Daytona every year, and his wife Jill she can't wait till he leaves. And she said when he comes back, she throws away about half his clothes. He doesn't even miss them. She cleans out his office. He doesn't miss anything.
Never realizes it's gone.
She doesn't. Leo doesn't know what's going to be cleaned up. While he's out of town, he comes back. Hey, everything's great.
That's right.
I could use a couple out of town trips like that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way though. I kind of work in a little chaos.
Yeah, me too.
It's good.
I know where everything is.
There's an art to it, and I think
Yeah.
artist mentality does that. Like,
Yeah, creatives definitely
Yeah.
have messy desks and all
Yeah,
that
I mean,
kind
I
of
have
stuff.
a, I have
for the
a
most
whole
part.
shelf over there that we just put in because I decided, that all of the 3-inch pieces of tubing that's on my bandsaw over there, I shouldn't throw away because I might need that 3-inch piece of tubing. So we installed a shelf for the 3-inch pieces of tubing that I'll probably never use.
So to that point now, Javier says, "Oh yeah, this is great. Chaos is awesome." So Javier and I, we own a building together.
Yeah.
And we're a few weeks away from moving in. We'll find out if he's really on board with this chaos.
Because Sean's chaos.
Sean
too.
and I are really good friends, and I talk about Sean with Mike and I, but he'll tell you, what did I tell you we were going to do? We were going to put a wall, right?
Yeah, you're going to have a divider in the middle of it.
Have your chaos on the other
This
side
is
of the
my
wall.
mess. This is your mess. I don't do roommates anymore. I did roommates when I was younger for
Yeah.
that exact reason. I don't have a problem cleaning my mess.
Yeah. Well, we're having a basketball goal, so I'm just getting that on the table.
I
We
As
are
long as
gonna
it's
have
on your
that.
side of the wall, man.
I can't wait until you guys are 100% moved in and you can't tell the difference between the sides of the walls.
Yeah, probably.
It's going to
No,
look
it's
like
gonna-
same chaos.
This wall doesn't mean anything.
Probably.
It's what they say. Good walls make good neighbors. So
We're going to need a bigger wall.
Yeah, got to build a bigger wall.
It's not the first wall I've grown up.
You can tell his side. It'll probably be swept and mine won't. You know?
Right. So how long have the Rodders been the Rodders?
75 years.
75 years.
years.
as a club.
in
This
the
is
early
the year.
'60s, we would have a meeting every Sunday night, and everybody would go to Halls or Carlisle or wherever, and everybody would get back to Memphis usually in time for the meeting up at Ray Godman's at the corner of Summer and Parkway, and we would meet. And those nights we would have 50 or 60 people every Sunday night at the
Right.
meeting.
I heard those were kind of wild.
Well, the meetings weren't so wild, but what happened? We would.
After party.
This is another part of growing up in Memphis. During that period of time, Memphis was the coolest place on the planet, just about. We had music, we had cars, we had motorcycles, we had just everything. I mean, I don't know what else to say. And so after and Overton Square was just kind of coming around shortly after that. So after the Rodders meetings, we would all go out and go someplace and drink beer and listen to live music. I mean, it was
Right.
fantastic. It was just great. And that was probably the wild part, I guess. But, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 60s or 70s then?
Up into the 70s. We quit
70s,
having
yeah.
regular meetings in probably the mid-70s.
Yeah. And then the Rodders reunion started.
Yeah.
And it started when they were building Memphis Motorsports Park. And the promoters there thought they'd get all the Rodders together and maybe get some hints on what to do. Now, we had put races on at Halls and we had promoted shows. In fact, the Rodders first were really heavy into shows when all the racing was on Street Rodders. And that's that's another story. But for 2 or 3 years, we made money, so much money in the shows that nobody had to pay any dues. And we would have these fabulous parties. Eddie was usually promote the parties.
Yeah.
And then we'd have some kind of naughty parties.
Marshall promoted those.
I can tell by the way he said naughty that he was the organizer.
No, but then now I forgot what I'm talking about.
Remembering it's a naughty.
Well, anyway, part of the reason that drag racing evolved as far as we were concerned, we would put these shows on and they kept getting bigger and bigger. They started downtown at the auditorium in the North Hall.
Yeah.
And then the next year we started selling booze and stuff and then charging a moderate admission.
Yeah.
But then they kept growing and growing and we moved to the fairgrounds. And then we started really having good judges and stuff like that. and a lot of out-of-town cars would come in. Well, there was one incident that happened, and we had the big show. And this car, he had won everything in the area from Birmingham, and it was a fabulous car. But when we had the judging, the judges judged everything. We had one that judged the paint, and one originality, and one craftsmanship, and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, this car didn't score tops enough to win overall. Another car did. And we're giving out the trophies, and of course, we're giving out the big first place trophy and the second place trophy. No, he don't win first place. Oh boy, and he throws a tantrum. He gets that trophy and he slashes it up against the post. And if this was a Saturday night, he wanted to get his car out there. I'm going home. Boy, he really made a big stink. And we felt so bad about it. That was embarrassing.
Right. For him, yeah.
No, it was embarrassing for us. You know,
it sucks that it's your show.
And I mean, it really got to us because, you know, we feel like we had done the right thing.
Yeah.
We might have promised him he's going to win if he comes out.
There may have been a
So when you
promise.
say naughty, you have like a really naughty lifestyle. Come back next year, you'll be first. I promise.
And I'm going to tell you what now. That's just about the time we started to go to the drag races.
Oh.
And we talked about it a lot. Of course, we were trying to race anything.
Right.
But the thing about the drag racing, there's no ifs, ands, and buts. The guy that gets down there first, he gets the money.
Right, he's the winner. Right,
That's
no
right.
question.
And that was really something.
We were all Marshall and Larry and everybody in the club were racing. But in, I guess, the early 70s, they started having bracket racing.
Yeah.
And we all pretty much dropped out.
Really?
Anytime you win a race and lose at the same time, it ain't racing.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
we all quit, and that was pretty much it. And after that, the Rodders became more of a social club, and we had these New Year's Eve parties, and they evolved into being the party of the year. And the last one we had, I was the promoter, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, and I was freaked out. We had, let's just say we had $2,000 or $3,000 in the bank, but we had an overhead of about $7,000 or $8,000 for the party. We rented a big room at the Holiday Inn, had a great band. I mean, the whole thing. And after that party, I think we had about 800 or 900 people show up, and I just freaked out and I said, "I'm not doing this anymore." And we quit doing it. I mean, it was just, but it was that we were the party to go to in town.
That's what I'm talking about. I still feel like the Rodders reunion is that.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like that. It is.
How did you guys like this last year?
Oh, it was
Fabulous.
fantastic. Yeah.
Fabulous.
And what's amazing is it just keeps growing, and I just can't believe. I can believe it, but I'm just impressed that there are that many people that are that much into the cars, and you don't know about it. All these people just show up. You say, where did they come from? You know?
They're around.
I found out there's a guy right around the corner from me building a Cobra Kit car. He's 3 minutes from my house. I didn't even know it.
Your neighbor didn't know it.
Yeah, and he's probably going to finish his.
I was say, yeah. So y'all can help each other out.
He just 8 miled himself.
We got faith in you, Eddie. We got faith in you.
What impressed me the most about the way you guys put that show on, it reminded me of the way the Rodders were when we first started racing. Everybody had a single purpose and personalities. Now, I know there was a little static, and there's always going to be a little static.
Right.
But overall, you got the job done.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was good. And everybody was
Absolutely.
happy except the ones that got their toe stepped on a little.
Yeah. And I think they
Or
were
didn't
happy
get
at
any
the end of the
barbecue
day,
because they
too.
were parking cars.
Yeah, right.
I heard the barbecue was good.
I didn't even see or smell. The
I didn't eat any
barbecue.
food either. But yeah, that
none
was
of
our
us-
job.
None of us ate. None of us ate.
That's okay. We got it done.
I tell you, I was glad that that Leonard's was able to do it. It kind of happened at the last minute, but
Yeah.
they've been a part of it for so long. I was really glad that they were there.
Yeah. And they killed it
yeah,
because
it
they
took-
were expecting what?
Amen.
We were thinking,
We
what,
said
300?
400. I think was
400?
what we gave them. We said 400.
Yeah, we did way over 400.
And-
We had
yeah.
400 cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what got me. I couldn't believe the number of cars that showed up. I mean, that's
I've
just.
said it before on this show. Like I couldn't get high enough in the room because it was all inside to get a full picture of all of the cool cars.
He hadn't finished his move yet either. There,
Yeah,
he's
he's moving
moving,
next door.
but he hadn't. It's not. I talked to somebody the other day that was doing some work
Oh,
there.
they're in now.
Are they completely in?
Yeah, they're
Art and
complete.
Speed.
Yeah, they're completely in the new building, and it's packed.
Who are we talking about, Sean?
Art and Speed.
Art and
Art and
Speed.
Speed out in Collierville is where we had the Rodders reunion this past year, and Art and Speed is moving. They moved to a building right in front of where they were, and the building that they were in was part of another building.
Yeah.
That had a lot of storage in it. They store RVs and things like that in there. So there was tons of room. We parked all the cars in the aisleways, and we figured out in the beginning we could fit 44 cars on an aisle.
Yeah.
And we ended up. We thought we'd only need 2 aisles, maybe like one and maybe 1.5.
Well, my favorite thing is when
Two.
he said you'll never fill these 2 things up.
Yeah,
and he wound up opening a whole different section of the warehouse.
Yeah.
So they could park.
We had to go to the
And then
back part of the building.
I think there was people that actually did park outside.
So
Yeah, there was,
Justin called me the other day. I might be making a sign for him.
Oh, that's cool.
You hear me, Justin? Call me, buddy.
See how we plugged the Art and Speed? See how we did that?
Yeah.
It was shameless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
yeah, Art and Speed's a good place.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
folks.
Yes,
When
it
I
is.
heard what you were going to do and have all those cars inside, and I'm thinking to myself, I've been through a lot of stuff, putting on shows and drag races and stuff like that. But I said, that's going to be the biggest traffic jam I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And we got there a little bit early, and everything was going so smooth, man. There was nobody, 2 or 3 waiting to get in, and they coming in right away, and
Yeah.
they're parking them right away. And then after it's over,
Nobody hit each other.
it wasn't all that jam. Everybody's
Peeled
getting
out. It was a perfect. We had a long meeting about how we were going to do that, and it went out. So that was good.
I was just
And
about
a couple
thought
of
y'all.
arguments.
I just
Here and
Truth
there.
be told, Marshall, we got to do a big fight about it before.
I got the impression that y'all knew what you were doing.
I'm
We
gonna
fake it real well.
hey, Mike, it worked.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
It
give
worked.
credit to Brereton here.
Yeah, that's going to be Sean Brereton. He came up with the whole idea of the parking, and of course, the guys that helped out with the parking, all
Yeah.
those guys that showed up. Actually, the
Yeah.
guy across the street,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeff
at,
Jeff
Second
saved my
Power.
butt.
man, those,
And so did
just so many guys showed up and was just happy to help. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
It
no,
really
there was a point where we were parking cars and stuff, and it was taking so long, to get
Yeah.
somebody in, and I'm trying to get them so tight because
Right.
I knew, I was like, man, there's a lot of cars here. Like, we gotta get these things tight, So you're trying to move them over, and Jeff stepped in and he started. He'd be like, okay, move on to the next one. I'll get this guy over, whatever.
Right.
So he'd do that, and then we ended up finishing one aisle and the next aisle starting to park, and that's Javi was on the next aisle parking cars over there. It was like,
We never skipped a beat. It probably looked really good from y'all's angle.
Yeah.
We were yelling at each other.
Oh, it was chaos.
yeah.
I was just staying in the background. I didn't want to get involved.
Yeah.
So we, how are we doing on time?
We're about at probably an hour and 10 minutes. But if you
okay.
guys want to keep going, I'm
It's up
all
to you
in.
guys.
I don't have anywhere to be till tomorrow at 8.
So we'll finish it out, and let's finish it out on. So what's next?
What's
from
next?
here?
What's the future?
from
What,
here?
Yeah.
What's next is the Rodders are redoing their charter and everything, and we want to take in some new members and all. And we want you guys to be very heavily involved. And
Carry it on.
Amen.
Yeah,
75th anniversary.
and we got to do it pretty quick because I'm slipping fast.
You're sharper than most 30-year-olds.
I was gonna
That's
say,
what I gotta
man.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, we never really said how old Marshall is. Marshall, how old are you?
150.
No, I'm older.
Sean,
He's my younger brother.
Should we joke that he's 150 years old?
May the 3rd, I'll be 94.
Hold on, you were born May the 3rd?
Yes, sir.
My birthday's May the 5th.
That's what.
Cinco de Mayo.
Hey,
Well, you can join our party.
you're a May too, aren't you?
May
Now, wait a
28th.
minute.
May 28th.
Preston is May 28th. Preston Davis. John Callie's is May something or other. We have a birthday lunch in May.
Yeah, I was supposed to go last year, but my wife wound up booking us a trip in Florida.
That's right.
My video called you guys.
Well, you could
Sean,
have
you
taken
went-
us
I
down there.
Yeah, I went.
Yeah, Sean went in my place because Sean was not born in May.
No, I was not. I'm a June baby.
He's a
Now, wait a minute.
He was your proxy?
You went to the party or you went to Florida?
No, I went to the party. I went to Florida with Mike's wife.
It was a weird trip.
Mike was there too.
Right, it was odd. So the Rodders will continue. How about you, Eddie? What's going on with you? When is this Cobra kit car getting done? When are we going to throw a party at?
Well, I can't say, but I want to get it done, and my sons are anxious for me to get it done, and my grandkids, and probably my great grandkids. But anyway, but I work every day. I still love to work. People ask me when I'm going to retire. I said, well, if I retired, I couldn't charge for my work, so I got to, so this way I can
win
keep
twice.
charging. And I also like to eat, so that's an encouragement to work.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
I just want to continue to have just a happy, blessed life like I've had, and just enjoy. I enjoy all the people. I still have people calling me up saying, I got your name from so-and-so, and it's just to kind of, and I'll get work all the time. I've got probably 5 jobs that just came in the last week or so, people. And over the years, my name, I guess, has just kind of become a go-to guy, and so I enjoy being in that place, and I enjoy working with the people. And as far as I know, I've not made many enemies. I haven't made maybe a lot of money, but I've made a tremendous number of friends, and to me, that's a lot more valuable and a lot more fun. And so that's where I'm at. My wife and I just are really thankful at all that we've been able to, do. And we've been to Bonneville, to the Salt Flats. I've been on a pit crew at the 24 Hours at Daytona. I've been involved in aircraft. I've been involved in all kind of professional motorcycle racing, professional drag racing to an extent. I've lived a life. I've been on treasure hunting, diving in the Caribbean. I mean, most people can only dream about, in my mind, the things that I've actually had the opportunity to do, and I'm just really thankful for it.
For sure. Absolutely.
That's really awesome.
Absolutely.
So I kind of wanted to plug something that Eddie had given me a while back. So I've got it's a short history of the Rodders, and it was an article that Eddie had put out in a magazine years ago. So I've still got it, and when we air this podcast, I want to release it then. You know, I've been kind of holding on to it and kind of saving the right time.
It's like the perfect time right now.
It is, but I'm telling you, when you read this, it will blow your mind.
You're talking about the biographies?
Yes.
And one of the most interesting things about that, of all of those, I don't know if people know that, but most people are familiar with the company Hypertech.
Yep.
Right.
It was started in Sun Studios.
Wow.
Really?
The building was empty. Mark rented the building, started Hypertech, and in the back half of the building, a guy was doing velvet paint jobs. You know, the old velvet.
The velvet canvas?
Yeah, and Volkswagens were the big ones. They'd paint them with that velvet paint. Anyway, the front door had a green front door on the building in velvet. And while Hypertech, actually it wasn't Hypertech at that point, I guess it was Cam Dynamics or something was being born. And at the same time, Racing Head Service was born there.
Wow.
The founders of Racing Head Service, actually Mark Heffington was a part, I can't remember all the names, but he was actually a part of the original founding of it, basically, and it all evolved out of Sun Studios.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's just
That's
that's
epic.
Memphis.
These stories,
Yeah, it is. That's
These
so
stories
Memphis.
he's talking about, I sat down with these people and I basically just had a conversation. I wrote down what they said. This is not my view. This is what they said about their lives.
Right.
I did one about Marshall, Ray Godman, Mark Heffington, I can't remember who. Anyway, so if you read these things, you're reading the words that these guys told me about their life.
That is epic.
It's unbelievable. When you start reading it, I mean, just
I'm excited
it will
about that.
blow your mind.
I'm
I can't
a little
wait
disappointed
for you
that I
guys.
just
holding
now
on to
heard
that?
about it.
Well, I wanted the right time. I knew that there would be a moment that I would actually, pull this card out of my pocket.
And here it is.
And here
This
it is.
guy
Yeah.
right here.
You know I'm going to need that information, right?
I'm gonna send it to you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because Marshall and I are going to get together on the 75th
Yeah.
anniversary
So-
and do a piece in
Eddie,
modern routing.
to Eddie's credit, and this is kind of funny how I got it because he lost it. And then he shows up with a hard drive that was pulled out of a PC and just hands me a hard drive.
There might
It's
be
in
buried
here
treasure.
somewhere.
Here you go, computer guy.
Well, and to his word, I dug around and there it is. I pulled it out of this miscellaneous hard drive that he had laying around. So.
Yeah, the title of the articles were Ripples and Cornerstones. And I got that from a book that Victor Davis Hanson wrote about ripples of battle. That's another story. But anyway, so the concept was these people were the cornerstones of racing.
Right.
And their lives the ripples from their lives affected people all over the country. And back at that time, Memphis was, I think it was said that there were more speed equipment manufacturers in Memphis than any other city in the nation.
I believe it.
California may have had more as a state, but Memphis was the big place.
Right.
And so all these people were cornerstones of that industry, and the ripples from their lives affected people all over the world, literally.
Right here in Memphis, Tennessee.
Right out of Memphis. Yep.
That's awesome.
Memphis had the most racing cam manufacturers
Yeah.
than any place in the country.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah, it still blows me away,
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Well, guys.
We need to all try to remember all these things and document it, because, like I said, it gets lost, and when it's lost, it's gone. And so
That's why y'all are sitting
you
right
guys
where
are
you're
sitting
at.
right there.
Marshall and I are going to go down to the library and try to research the Memphis Gold Cup Mile. There was a mile horse track in Memphis.
Wow.
And it was up on Thomas. And it later became Lazaro's Junkyard.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of y'all ever went to the junkyard, but when you went in there, well, first there was these big stone gates like at the entrance, and there was actually a plaque out on the street that told the history of the track. And in Mr. Lazaro's office, there were pictures of these women with the bustles and the men with their hot top hats and all.
Yeah.
And it was a mile oval. And when they built the junkyard, they just left the track, and that was the road through the junkyard, and all the junk was piled in the infield and out around the perimeter.
Really?
Yeah.
And they never raced cars there, but it was a racetrack.
Horse run.
Yeah.
And there were two, I guess, motorcycle and car tracks at the fairgrounds over the years.
Yeah.
They raced midgets and motorcycles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I mean, we came to Memphis in the wrong era.
I know, right?
Yeah,
Totally.
he said it when he sat
Totally.
down. He's like, I'm about to tell y'all how terrible you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And I believed him, but I didn't want to believe him. But now I'm just going to go home and cry.
Those tracks opened a whole new set of stories. And the Rodders were concerned with them. And one was right on Central Avenue. And
Wow.
that's when midget racing was so popular in this part of the country. Of course, it started in the Midwest.
Right.
In the early midget racing, the little 60 model V8 Fords, they were everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like you don't see midget racing around here at all anymore.
It's something still going on
know?
up in Indiana.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's big in Indiana. Of course, Tulsa, the Chili Bowl and all that. But you don't really see midgets around here. You see sprint cars a lot. But,
Well, Riverside
yeah.
opened in 1948,
I don't know why.
49.
Yeah, I think
you're right.
It's
I
rumored
was-
to be the
I was
longest.
almost an investor in Riverside.
Wow.
Wow.
A bunch of us used to hang out at Montgomery Auto Supply, which before the days of the speed shop, of course, they had some little speed stuff up there. And the owner was Sonny Montgomery. Well, his daddy owned Dixie Auto Parts, which were a wholesaler for all auto stuff, so hubcaps, imitation white sidewalls, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And his daddy had a lot of holdings in West Memphis, Arkansas. Well, I went in there one day, and I was pretty young, and everybody thought I had money because my family had a little money.
A new Jaguar.
I was just saying you were driving a Jag. Yeah. One of two in Memphis.
Then I drive the
Anyway,
Cadillac.
Sonny said, Daddy wants to see you. And I thought, uh-oh, man, this sounds serious. I thought it was something I'd done wrong. I said, no. He said, no, he got something for you. And so I went up to see him. Well, they wanted me to be an investor in the original Riverside. They were going to build it on that gumbo over there. And it's an ideal location, boy, between Memphis and West Memphis and everything. Well, I went over there, and I don't remember the exact figures. I think for $3,000 or $4,000, I could have been a 20% interest.
Wow.
Wow.
And I had some money now. I was kind of a miser, but I wasn't going to put my money in that damn thing. So I went there. I asked my daddy, I said, Daddy, will you lend me like $3,000 or $4,000? And, it wouldn't have been nothing to him. He said, for what? I said, well, I want to invest it in something. He said, for what? I said, a racetrack. And then, of course, we had properties in Hot Springs, and they had to. Well, he thought I meant horse racing. And he said, a racetrack where? And I said, over in Memphis. And he lit up. He said, how much? And I'm telling him, and he's really interested. He said, you gonna build a horse racetrack over there? I said, no, Daddy, it's for cars. He said, what? You crazy?
Here's Marshall. This may have been part of my downfall. Marshall told me early in life that he couldn't wait to earn some money so he could go spend it. And that's been my philosophy, I think, ever since. I want to make some money so I can go spend it.
Absolutely.
So, guys, there's one story that hasn't come up yet that is just great, and I don't want to let you guys out of here until somebody tells about it. But the drag race that you guys were planning to have on Highland Avenue.
Memphis at that time,
There it is.
the Rodders with Memphis was trying really hard to get a drag strip here in Memphis. And we got associated with the Junior Chamber of Commerce. And a lot of us joined the Chamber of Commerce trying to promote this. And boy, it was a good thing. And they saw it. And boy, of course, they talk real big, those guys that are just coming up. But anyway, it came up about, let's put on an exhibition on the street so everybody will see what drag racing is. And it was brought up, maybe we could block off Highland. Now, you think of Highland like it is today, but it hasn't always been like that.
Okay. So
now, you think of Highland maybe
Give me some cross streets. Highland to what?
between Walnut Grove and the railroad tracks.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So Southern and Walnut Grove?
Right. Where the college is at.
From Kroger to the college.
No, he said
No,
Walnut Grove.
From
Railroad
Walnut
tracks.
Grove going north.
Towards summer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Summer.
Walnut Grove.
Well, the railroad tracks.
I would
up
say
there.
that was probably out in the boonies then, wasn't it?
It wasn't out in the boonies,
Yeah,
so
but
but
it was-
then the East Gate was already there. And
That's a pretty good slope. If the topography is the same by the golf course.
Of course, it never.
didn't matter.
It was almost a dream. I mean, there wasn't anything real to it.
I see.
But
But one thing
pushed it.
real, and the Rodders had promoted this. We saw somewhere that a city was trying to get a drag strip, but then we came out with these stickers that went on the back of everybody's car. Said Memphis needs a drag strip.
Yep.
Well, of course, the Rodders, we were dedicated to safety. That's in the charter and everything. And anybody, if you run out of gas or you have a flat, somebody stop and fix it. But also there was a lot of racing from the stoplights and stuff like that.
Right.
And every time somebody got arrested, the newspaper come out with that Memphis needs a drag strip on the back. Boy, there was a lot of negativity, I'll tell you that. And the police, it just irritated them to death.
Well, I mean, we're kind of going through the same thing right now with they keep calling it drag racing, which is not drag racing. It's idiots doing stupid stuff on the interstates. But they're trying to crack down on that now. And those people need to go to the drag strip. We have a drag strip. They
Yep.
need to utilize it, and they need to go and do their stupid stuff there.
Well, it's free to kill yourself on the interstate.
Yeah.
They're not going to pay $25 to run
I
on
know,
test.
it's like $20 run it as many times as you want.
Well, in their defense, history repeats itself, right?
yeah, right.
I'm sure that people our age in 1950 felt the exact same way
Well,
about these guys.
Because see, they were racing because they didn't have a drag strip. We have a drag strip.
No, it's different, though.
No, they were stoplight
we
to
wanted to
stoplight.
race. They wanted to show off.
Right.
Two
yeah,
different
That's
things.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Right. Hey, I do have a question. Were you guys like around when cruising on Summer Avenue started? Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Is that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how did that start? Because I mean, when I grew up, Summer Avenue was the place.
It was.
I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there was some spots where everybody hung out. Willie King's was on the corner of Union Avenue, extended in Poplar. In Summer Avenue, what was it, a Crystal or a...
Yeah, the Crystal.
Crystal by
Then
the
the pitch. The
and they
pitch.
would gather there, and then hot cars would go there, and you'd go through the parking lot, and somebody, then you'd get together.
Yeah.
But I cured a lot of that. I had the Austin Healey 100 with a V8 Chevy in it, a
Yes.
265 Chevy.
Yes.
And boy, it was fast. And I mean, it was really fast. Of course,
that's
then there were no
basically
tires. I had butyl rubber tires on. That's the best you could get. And anyway, I had basically a Corvette engine, and I was 1,000 pounds lighter than a Corvette.
Wow.
And I went through there 2 or 3 times, and I'd go out and race people, and I wouldn't race them. I'd tease them. I'd go up with them, and then I wouldn't give them the finger, but I'd wave back. And I'd stamp it. And then after that,
Things calmed down.
nobody knew what they did with each other, but
Yeah.
The big fish was done.
Yeah, that was a big thing. There were drive-ins. Like I said, there was the Title House out on Poplar, and there was Bonnie's over on Summer. There was in the Jungle Garden down on Union, which was supposed to be the world's first drive-in. So there were a lot of places, and then there was Gillies down on 3rd Street, and so you had little groups that had their place, and they'd get together and go out and race against each other or whatever. But it wasn't rampant. It was, and most time it would do it in fairly safe places, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember
Well,
anything.
I mean, back in the 80s when I'd be there, when I'd be on Summer Avenue and stuff, you have the group that would hang out at the McDonald's over on Poplar. Then there was another group that hung out at Crystal, and then there was, cruising up and down Summer was from Super Shops to Zayre's, and you go back and forth there. And
hung out
and
in
then
AutoZone parking lot.
Yeah, and then sometimes, AutoZone parking lot, which
24-hour AutoZone.
Yeah, which it wasn't AutoZone then. I don't even remember. It was a Central Hardware or something then, wasn't it?
What was that speed shop across the street? It's at O'Reilly's now.
Yeah, Speed is
Super Shops.
Super
Super
Shops.
Shops,
It was
yeah.
Super Shops, and
Yeah.
then it was
Yep.
it
Had a dyno.
Lucky's.
Lucky's.
Then it was
Oh, that's
Lucky's
Lucky's
Motorsports.
That's what I
Yep.
remember.
Yeah.
Had a
But we were
dyno.
all kind of out of the street stuff by then.
Right.
Because, like I said, we all kind of evolved out of it in the early 70s.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the guys got into street rodding, and
Right.
and a few people kept drag racing, but the kind of the core of the group kind of, like I said, when they started bracket racing, it wasn't racing anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I gotcha.
Was Walker in with you guys? Was Walker in
Yeah,
there?
Vernon
Vernon,
Walker.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he was in with you guys, and then
oh yeah,
and then
he was
had
a rodder.
Yeah, he had a
Obviously started
Topolino,
MSRA.
an A-altered Topolino.
wow, that's cool.
and that's the same as a Simca.
Right.
With a
Very
custom,
close,
with a
yeah.
custom radiator.
Yeah. Like that car Callis has now. It looked like
Yeah.
that little car John's got.
Yeah.
All right, we either got to cut this off or somebody bring me a bucket.
Probably a good sign.
Let's call it a night, guys.
There
Thank
you
you guys.
go. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you guys coming, and hey, we'll do this again. We enjoy the company of you guys, and we have a great time every time.
I'm
you're
gonna tell
around.
you what, I got hundreds of stories, and he does too that hadn't even been
Okay.
mentioned.
And we'll make up some if we.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Start with those, and we'll work back to the real ones.
There's nobody left to dispute you, so you're all right.
That's right.
There's enough for a whole show about me and Raymond Godman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we'll definitely get you back on for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Javier,
So-
get us out
I
of here.
don't know
bud.
if I want
Get us out of here with
I
the
did the
30s
lawyer
voice.
voice. I don't know if I'll do that.
No, you
Yeah,
got it,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Javier does
It-
a really good
That is
30s
all
announcer.
you, Javi.
What's that
Yeah,
right here?
right-
Is this
Right
the camera
there, right there. That's you.
Yeah.
This has been Hot Rod Blues with your guest, Marshall Robilio and Fast Eddie Wilbanks. Tune in next week when we investigate something cooler. There's not going to be anything cooler. Just come back.
Nothing cool.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Good night.